Hello, Bible readers. Okay, so Revelation is the last book of the Bible, and we say that not to be obvious, but as a way of saying the Bible can be read as a whole, and the last act of that whole Bible is proclaimed through Revelation, which shares a vision of what it will be like after. And Revelation is a pastoral letter. John of Patmos is a particular person writing to particular people who are experiencing unique contextual circumstances. And where that leads, that idea leads us to admit that Revelation was not written to us. It was written out of pastoral concern to 7 churches in first century Asia who were in crisis. And the crisis was, as the community we call the church was aging out from the first generation leadership of apostles like Peter and James and Paul and others, there were questions about how do we move forward. And at the same time, Rome and Jewish authorities, having gone to war in Jerusalem 20 some years before Revelation is written, they're both looking sideways at Christians. It's a crisis moment. Into crisis, God gives John a vision and says, write this down, tell this. And that's why the next thing I'm going to unpack is that Revelation is, ready, written by a Christian prophet. Christians in Asia, remember Roman province Asia, not the continent of Asia, during the 90s of the first century, Christians in Asia were under huge pressure to go through the formality of worshiping the image of the Roman emperor or else. So if you confess Jesus as Lord instead of Caesar, well, what are your options? Professor Boring suggests there were 6. Ready? Number 1. Quit. Like maybe conversion came through a friend or a daily or family member who was just really compelling, and the community were your kind of people, and you found something there. But now this belief is costing me my reputation and my job and maybe my freedom or even my life. All I have to do to take Rome's attention off me is to curse Christ and bow to Rome. Sure, I quit. Second option, lie. Like, bow to Caesar, curse Christ, but don't mean it. Maybe I've got kids and others who rely on me. It would be the lesser of 2 evils, right? To say it and do it, but then be able to stand around and be God's hands and feet in the world. Right? Like, it's not bad to lie in this case, maybe. Well, John of Patmos didn't like options 1 or 2 at all. For liars, for that second option, he said, there are places reserved for them in the lake of fire. Okay, so the third option, fight. This is more a theoretical option than anything grounded in reality because Rome is just too strong. There's not much a person or even a group could do. Number 4. Change the law. This too is more theoretical than real. There is no democratic process in Rome, and Christians had no power. So working within the system, it just can't work. Option number 5, and this might be, along with lying, this was the one that I might choose. Maybe, but this one is adjust. Maybe combine, the parts of Christianity with the best features of Roman culture and religion. Maybe we just need to rethink Christian theology so that God can be revealed in other religions too. Maybe even the emperor could be included somehow, So like for many American Christians living in what is now the empire of our time, we should understand the temptations of this option very well. How much civil religion do we pull into our Christianity? Can't we make it all just kind of flow together? That's the option of their time 2,000 years ago as well. The final option Christians have is to die. adjusting corrupts the good news of Jesus and tries to add other gods like Caesar or a flag or whatever. And since changing the law and fighting are both impossible, a faithful Christian, really just has one option: death. If I'm a faithful Christian in the midst of this crisis moment and I want to do the right thing, if I want to know the will of Jesus in this moment, where do I go? To whom do I turn? John of Patmos claims he has the word of the Lord. That's why we're calling him a prophet. Remember that a prophet is not someone who predicts the future. A biblical prophet is simply a mouthpiece for God, telling people of faith what is true, what has been true, what will remain true. The way Boring defines it is this: a Christian prophet is one who spoke the message of the risen Lord Jesus directly to the Christian community. And for our purposes, we're not only interested in knowing that John was a prophet, but how he communicated his message. So first, a couple notes. In 48 pages of text in the standard Greek New Testament, John makes 500 allusions to the scriptures. He is constantly referring to this idea from Genesis and that story from Samuel. No listener could possibly make sense of Revelation without knowing the Old Testament and knowing it well. In coming posts, after I talk a lot more about Revelation is and is not, I'm going to speak specifically to the structure of the letter and what all those references mean for what John is trying to say, that the end might be what it could mean to us now, what it meant then. But for now, I just want to say one more thing about what Revelation is. It is an apocalypse. This is a genre of writing, kind of like how someone today, if they wanted to communicate a great truth, they might choose to write a straight-up novel, or they could add a twist in genre and set the novel in the past. An historical novel, that's a little different, right? Or they could write a science fiction novel, yet another genre of its own. There are benefits and burdens of any genre of writing that an author chooses. John of Patmos isn't trying to write a book, though, that's later going to be admired or analyzed or decoded as though it's written in code. He's trying to communicate out of pastoral concern a message of prophetic importance to particular listeners who have these real problems, a crisis, really. Now, so if you're John, you're trying to communicate to these people at this time, how do you do it? Well, our culture is oriented to visual media. So like in our time, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, movies, television, all of the screens in our lives tell us that we're visual people, right? That's why I'm doing this through your device. But then in John's day, it's an oral world, more like a radio culture. Our great-grandparents would sit by the radio and listen to. People are oriented to messages then, 2,000 years ago, that come into their ears rather than through their eyes. John obviously wants his message to get talked about, to be something big, something memorable, stand out. So the first word is apocalypse, which is a thick, deep word. So follow me for just one more minute, and I'm going to get to apocalypse. I'm going to start with what providence means. Providence means simply look ahead. To believe in providence is to believe somebody's in the driver's seat of history. God is looking ahead, guiding history. That's the idea of providence. Eschatology, well, that word's root is eschaton, a Greek word that means end. So eschatological thought goes beyond the idea of providence, that God is simply guiding history, and claims something more, that God is guiding history to an end game, if you will. So when Revelation says God is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, that may not seem like a very big deal, but one alternative is to not believe there is an end of any significance. But Revelation uplifts this idea that there is an end, that God is that end, and that means the end is good, very good. As much as eschatology then is a certain kind of providence. Apocalypse is a certain kind of eschatology. Apocalyptic thought says that, yeah, God is guiding creation to an end that is already revealed. Apocalypse is the unveiled end game of God. That's what this letter is, a revealing of the end, which would have been powerful to people who had to be wondering, is God faithful? Like, people of this day were seeing persecutions of their fellow believers. They were feeling real fear. If I do choose, this is what they might be thinking. If I do choose option death, like John suggests, well, what then? Apocalypse reveals a gracious God then, holding a very good end in God's hands with leaves from the tree of life ready to heal all ills. All right, in the next post, I'm going to use one more post to finish up what Revelation is before launching into what it is not. See you next time. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.